Welcome back. It's Tim and Julie Harris, and this is your daily dose of real estate coaching and training. And today's the focus is speed to sold, your 10-point listing launch checklist. Now, this is something that's by request. A lot of you are having listings for the first time. Go you. And guess what? Some of those listings aren't selling in 22 seconds and you're not knowing what to do or how to do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you, and again, this is an overview of the system that we give you inside Premier Coaching. This is certainly not the entire plan. This is a condensed version that we could effectively fit in to 30 minutes of our podcast. If you want the complete plan, obviously, if you want to really know how to become a listing agent that's, effective at not just taking the listings, but getting them sold, you want to seriously consider joining Premier Coaching. Speaking of which, you are formally invited to attend our free and so far pretty fun masterminds that we're doing every single day now. So attend the Harris Mastermind by going to harrismastermind.com and just register. You can choose your day and your time. We're doing them on different days and different times, and set aside about 2 hours. And what Julie and I are focusing on is helping agents overcome the 3 biggest challenges that agents are experiencing in this market, frankly, because of this market. So definitely attend Harris Mastermind. Just go to harrismastermind.com or click the link below to join. All right, Julie, let's go ahead and jump right in.
All right, so let's say that you've just secured your next listing. Go you, congratulations, that's fantastic. But now you have a new challenge, delivering outstanding results for your sellers. Now, maybe they're first-time sellers, maybe they're luxury clients or relocating executives, but they do all want the same thing, which is the most amount of money in the least amount of time with the fewest headaches to them. Now, even in a low inventory market, some of you have a mixture, some of you still have low inventory. It's still your job to prepare, present, and market the home like a pro. In a competitive market, it's not optional. The more competition you have, it's even more important for you to show these homes in their best light. So we're going to give you some of the checklist. Again, as Tim said, we can't give you the whole checklist. You can get the notes, but we're going to start with point number 1. Curb appeal and first impressions matter most. If you're going to spend some time on what the house looks like, this is a great place to start. Buyers make their decision in 2 places. One is from the street. That also means your front picture in your MLS. That's from the street when they're browsing online, but also certainly when they drive past. And secondly, when they walk in the foyer. So the first impression is looking from the street. Do I even want to bother going in? And if there's 10 other homes that are competing with it, maybe you're going to lose if your front door isn't spruced up, right? I recently had a coaching client show me a picture of the front door and say, should I take care of this? And you know what it was? It was a decent little first-time buyer house, but the front door was apparently steel, and it had a big rust hole, or like a rust, like it just looked terrible. The rest of the house was probably fine.
It's rustic. You don't know. In that community, that may have been the thing, right?
Rustic,
I mean, who knows?
maybe? I don't know.
Yes, see how that's funny? It's kind of supposed to be a stupid joke.
You could work with it, but why would you want to if you don't have to? So yes, replace the front door and make it look great from the street. Go ahead.
But this is the basic thing that everyone should know. The challenge a lot of you guys are going to have is knowing how to tell the seller that their house looks like crap from the street. Again, I'm condensing.
That's not a script.
That's not a script. Don't use that one. No. But that's the challenge you're going to have. You're not going to necessarily feel comfortable or telling them, let alone they're not going to feel comfortable hearing you tell them that the house needs to be spruced up. And so you can use these notes, frankly, and you can use some other information. It's on Premier Coaching. We have a complete home seller guide that gives them a lot of elaborate checklists. It's made specifically for the sellers. Hey, Julie, can you make a note that we need to update that complete home seller guide? And anyway, this is something after you take the listing that you give to the sellers that explain to them what exact things they should be doing to prepare the house. But you would be shocked, and there's been lots of research, you guys can use AI to figure this out too, about how much just new landscaping, having the grass cut, having the trees trimmed, having the door painted of all colors red, the effect, now obviously if it's a modern neighborhood, maybe not, but all those little tiny traditional things that someone loves the house, even though it's for sale, that is really going to make an enormous impact on someone's emotions. Nobody has ever purchased anything. And this is something you got to remember. You can explain this to your sellers as well. Non-emotionally, every single thing, and it does not matter what it is sold emotionally, no matter how analytical, non-emotional, how drilled down you think you are. Everything in your mind operates as a spreadsheet. You are still making decisions by using emotions, and you're essentially fortifying those decisions with your analytical brain. Exactly. So when you're going through the process of how to explain to a seller what they should be doing to prepare the house, you need to explain to them that what will often happen is that the buyer and the buyer's agents will pull up to the front of the house. And if the house does not immediately have that emotional appeal, they're going to already have subconsciously ruled it out no matter how nice it is on the inside. And it's so strange. Again, lots of research has been done on this, that if the house looks really great from the street and inside, as soon as they walk into the house, hold on. As soon as they walk into the house is a bit of a dirt bag. They're still going to want to buy the house. But if the house is, a dirt bag on the outside, but really nice on the inside, they're not going to want to buy it. So just use that information. And why is it important that you know that? Well, obviously to get your listing sold, to get the seller happy and to get you paid, but it's also going to be something that will make you confident when you're explaining to the seller why they should be preparing the house. You're not just going to say that you don't think it looks good. You're going to give them actual factual information that's going to prove to them that's going to put more money in the pocket. And again, you're going to run into people sometimes that are going to be apprehensive. Should you cut the old tree down? Should you plant trees? Should you do all these other things? Well, in our complete home seller guide, we actually show the seller what the actual return on investment is from landscaping. And of all the things you can do to improve a house when it's for sale, where you're going to get the most return on investment, if you put, say, $5,000 into landscaping, you get like 15 grand back.
We have an actual graph. We have a chart as part of Premier Coaching in the listing section that goes through all of the potential home improvements that a seller might want to spend some money or might not want to spend some money on, and what their percent of return is, like a half bath versus a full bath, landscaping versus not landscaping, adding a pool, removing a pool, all of that kind of stuff. So it's pretty interesting. And our agents also use that when a seller's like, I don't know if I should remodel or if I should sell. Well, let's look at the costs and what the return might be. So the second thing that we're talking about is when you walk into the foyer, you don't want a bunch of clutter. You don't want a coat tree. You don't want piles of shoes sitting there. You've got to get them past the foyer to see the rest of the house. So that was all part of number one. Curb appeal and first impressions matter the most. The second thing, which is kind of similar, but now we're inside the house, is removing excess furniture to create space, to make the floor plan make sense. Think about, we always used to talk to sellers about, the way that you live in a house when it's for sale is different than how you normally, or how I normally live in a home. We're used to taking our shoes off by the back door, but if the house was for sale, I wouldn't have a pile of shoes there, right? So you want to think about that and consider, an agent, maybe two adults. The two agents have big bags or purses or totes. Maybe there's a kid, and these are four people trying to walk through a foyer. Does it feel spacious? Maybe it isn't really spacious, but you're making it feel worse because you've got all this clutter. So think about those things. And that's the same with oversized or too much furniture. Home consignment store is in most of the country, and they'll come and they'll assess your furniture and they'll take it away and they'll sell it for you. Or maybe you just put it in storage. Sometimes you're lucky and the seller's already moved and it's vacant. But if not, then declutter. Makes sense, right?
Well, there's something also to be said for removing any personal items. And that goes in along the lines of, furniture and whatnot. You want to have like no family pictures. You want to have no mounts on the wall. You want to have nothing. The gun collection, I know it's awesome, but you want to have that someplace else. You want to
even degrees and awards, because people will walk over to that wall and they try and figure out who the sellers are. You don't want them looking at the seller's stuff. You want them thinking of their own stuff in the seller's house.
That's exactly right. And again, it's hard to tell a seller this, especially hard if they're, say, for example, your friends, and maybe you've been to that house a million times for just gatherings or whatever. Well, now you're having to tell them that the house needs to be in a different, position if they're ever going to successfully sell it. Give them the printout. Now, I'll give you guys an advanced player tip here. If you're dealing in really upper end markets where, there's a lot of, let's just say, differences of opinion as far as decorating goes. And I'll tell you guys a funny story. Rob Johnson, who we've coached for a long time, is the #1 agent in Greenwich, Connecticut, whose average sale price is probably $10 million. In his marketplace, there are people that have owned a lot of these big ass houses for a long period of time. And their decorations, when they decorated them, were phenomenal. And I'm talking about rugs, all these things. But now they're outdated. Now they're all like not even. And so he said, for example, when you walk into one of these old houses that someone maybe spent millions of dollars to decorate, they've got beautiful tapestries in the wall, incredibly elaborate curtains, and the house is just beautiful. in 1995. Telling that seller that the house needs to have essentially be gutted is going to be a very difficult conversation because everyone wants light and bright. Nobody wants dark colored anything. Nobody wants Oriental rugs anymore. Nobody wants all these things. Now, 5 or 10 years, he and I used to joke that he's going to start a business where he's going to sell Oriental rugs because nobody wants them. And so he said he's just going to put them all in a U-Haul, a storage place, and then put them for sale in 5 years when Oriental rugs become popular again. But that aside, so he doesn't necessarily want to have that difficult conversation with the seller. He'll call in a decorator or a stager, and he'll pay her or him a flat fee to go in there and stage the property. If the numbers make sense, you would definitely want to do that because then you're making that stager the bearer of bad news and not you, because you could run afoul of the seller by telling them the things they should be doing to stage the house to the extent that you will offend them without them telling you. They might fire you, or if you're doing it at a time and you're doing it even before you have the listing contract signed, you probably won't take the listing. I know this is screwed up psychology, but that is unfortunately the reality of dealing with sellers. And again, I want to remind you guys, the 3 biggest challenges that agents are having in this marketplace, we are going to be mastering and helping you overcome in our mastermind that we're doing this week. So you want to make sure you register for our mastermind going to harrismastermind.com. The link is also down below in the show description, whether you're on YouTube or iTunes, but just go to harrismastermind.com. The masterminds we've been doing are running about 2 hours long, but they're fantastic. Lots of amazing comments afterwards. Probably one of the best things we've done as far as giving back to the real estate community in a long time, just because based on the feedback. So the energy and the enthusiasm and the sharing of ideas, it's really a lot of fun. So go to harrismastermind.com and register for the next mastermind. I know we're doing 3 this week. And you can choose your day and your time. We're trying to do them at different days and times to obviously accommodate as many people as possible. Go to harrismastermind.com or just click the link below. All right, point number 3, have a pet plan, Julie.
Okay, now some people are afraid of cats, afraid of dogs. Some people are allergic to cats and dogs. That kind of goes without saying. You guys can figure that out. Have a pet plan. Maybe a dog sitter. Maybe the seller meets the showing agent at the door and then goes on a walk with the dog. Okay, but you've got to address this because some people will not walk into a house with cats and dogs. They just won't do it, whether they're allergic or afraid. And last but not least, fresh from a coaching call, I had an agent say to me she's taking this beautiful new listing. There's nothing wrong with the house, nothing wrong with the neighborhood. She just had one question. I said, what was that? She said, well, I was excited about the listing till I went in the basement. In the basement were not 1, not 2, but several aquariums with snakes. Not just little snakes, but, like the kind of snakes that you feed mice and rats to. And she wanted to know how you talk to a seller about removing the snakes because she didn't think most people would be down with snakes at a showing. It's like snakes in a plane, snakes in a showing. So yeah, you have to address stuff like that. Maybe you can lend them to a pet store. Maybe they could become the school mascot for your kid's 2nd grade class. I don't know, but snakes are not good for listings. Just had to throw that out there. So have a pet plan.
It's not just snakes. I mean, you guys, the longer you're in real estate, you're going to have your own sort of
Spiders.
like collection of funny stories to share. What you have to remember is if someone's been living with a basement of snakes as their pets, they love those darn things. And you better at least show a high level of enthusiasm for them. Or again, they might take that personally. I'm telling you, when you're dealing with sellers, so let me frame this in a slightly different way. A seller is not wanting, generally speaking, to be in a position of having to sell their house. It's causing them a lot of stress.
Yes.
It's causing their pets a lot of stress. Selling a home, buying a home, and there's like 3 or 4 other things are the peak levels of most people's stress levels in their entire lives.
Even if they're selling for happy reasons, that's true.
That's 100%. So you've got to remember when you're, giving them good advice that's going to help them sell the house, you have got to do it in such a way that you're not going to offend them. Otherwise, again, it's not going to be a desirable outcome for you. All right, Julie, let's go on to the next one. And this is kind of along the same lines as the previous point. Eliminate odors.
Yes, that's right. So address the root causes if you can. Some houses have been smoked in for years and you've just got to remove all of the carpet and all of the drapery and repaint and put air ionizers in. And it's going to take more work than just opening the windows. It depends on what it is. But smells, whether they are identifiable or not identifiable, are all bad. So invest. The best advice I have for this is to invest in an air ionizer. You can get them on Amazon. Run it between showings or run it the day before showings. It really helps a lot. And whenever you can, remove whatever it is that's holding on to that odor. Remind the sellers they're moving anyway, and maybe that it's time for a refresh. So that's how much, we can spend on the odor thing, but it's not good for showings. All right.
Well,
Next is,
but let me just talk. So you
Sure.
guys, especially as you take more listings, this is going to be an interesting listing tool. A listing tool is essentially something that you can offer to the seller that the other agents aren't offering. And let's say you walk into a house. I'm kind of giving you a strategic plan how to think through this. And let's say the house smells like something that you know that the market's going to reject. And maybe it's cooking or baking or some pet odor, or gosh knows, unidentifiable odor, right? You need to explain to the seller that every single listing that you have open has to have have all this, a room ionizer or a room cleaner, air cleaner that's going to be used in the house for 6 hours prior to the house going for sale. Don't say your house stinks, or don't say someone might think your house stinks. Just say it's normal practice that every single seller I list, it gets an ionizer. Now, if the house doesn't smell and it's great, then don't worry about that. But that's a nice way for you to dance around, avoiding really insulting the seller.
just say you want to keep it freshened up and,
Right, well,
smelling like spring.
curry and onions are the biggest stinky smells if you didn't grow up with it. But if you grew up with curry, if you grew up with onions, that's how your family cooked, and you walk in there and you didn't have that experience, you're going to almost have a natural gag reflex in some cases because it's so freaking, strong. Just be very sensitive to the fact that when you say that not everyone, if you are not super cautious in how you explain to the seller that those odors might be offensive to people, what you're really doing is you're offending them, because that smell to them is like, say, for example,
Homey.
yeah, it might be for you equivalent to like apple pie or something like that. So just kind of move yourself beyond. You got to be thinking your highest and truest purpose in this plan is to be of service to other people. And when you're listing a house, be of service to the other person and put yourself in a position where you're feeling what they're feeling and being empathetic. And you're going to all of a sudden start listing more homes because you're going to have a certain, something that people don't quite understand. So the odors thing, Julie mentioned, you can get those things on Amazon. There's lots of different versions of them. The ones that work the best are the ones with HEPA filters and the ones that have the little blue light that also kill the bacteria that's in the air. If you have a house with the musty basement, you can stick one of those down there as well. It's okay to have those things running during open houses. Don't worry about the seller turning off dehumidifiers and all the rest of it. It's just normal. And maybe even that'll show the seller or show the prospective buyer that you or the seller cared enough about the condition of the property, even though it was for sale, to make sure that, everything's in balance. All right, Julie, let's go to the next point. Is point number 5, pre-inspect and fix whatever matters.
Yes, this is going to save you and the seller a lot of headaches to pre-inspect. I highly, highly, highly recommend that so that you don't have post-inspection negotiation nightmares. Now, you can talk to your favorite home inspector and cut a deal where they're not going to charge the entire, say, $500 or $600 for the inspection. They're just going to do the major mechanicals. So HVAC, the electric, things that commonly come out from a home inspection. If the furnace is, 15 years old and hasn't been serviced for 5 years, get it serviced, give it a clean bill of health, change the furnace filters, make it look like somebody has cared about it and actually care about it, because then when you're in contract, you're not going to have that nightmare. And it, it looks really great when you have next to your home brochure, you've got, look, this house has already been pre-inspected. We've taken care of the 3 things that came out on the inspection. There was a roof tile that we had to replace, and we serviced the furnace, and we're good to go. And sometimes that's depending on the age of the house and what you're dealing with. Sometimes the buyer isn't even going to do a new home inspection. You can't really recommend against it, but you can strongly encourage that things have been taken care of. So, dust off the inches of cat hair from the hot water tank and stuff like that.
But there's another strategic way to use this. If you're going on a listing appointment, you're going to, obviously trip across things that the seller needs to replace. For example, where we live in Puerto Rico, we live close to the ocean and nothing lasts. Air conditioners that would have lasted in Ohio 10, 15 years, they're going to last maybe 5 or 6 years here. And all these other things. And when walking around a property, whether it's in Ohio, whether it's in Puerto Rico, you're going to know a lot of the things are essentially, on their way out as far as the major appliances. And it's going to be trash compactors. It's going to be refrigerators. It's going to be roofs. It's going to be all this stuff. And that's going to have a potential negative effect on the sellability of the property. And let's say, for example, there's even a furnace that you know for a fact is going to need replaced, or 3 furnaces you're going to needs replaced. And you don't want to have to be the bearer of bad news explaining to the seller this is going to work against you. You can say, here's what I'd like to do. Let's have the house pre-inspected. And then be, again, just like the home stager, have the inspector be the bearer of bad news. Have the inspector say the roof is going to need replaced. Have the inspector say the electrical is probably going to need updated. Have all that information pre-disclosed, so the seller, you're not going to be the one that's like, if you go hard on acting, this is a typical agent mistake. They're going to all of a sudden think they're supposed to be the home inspector, and they're going to go in there and start, and this happens on both the buyer and seller side, again, playing home inspector, and they shouldn't be. And they're going to talk themselves out of sale on the buyer side, or a listing on the seller side. Delegate to professionals. Let them be the bearer of bad news. Use play neutral. Remember, ultimately, your job is to always have the seller feel that you're on the same side of the table as they are. It's you and the sellers against the market, not the market and you against the seller. Psychologically, as soon as they start feeling that you're no longer their advocate, even on the small, non-consequential things, you're going to start losing the trust and faith of that seller, and you're probably not going to keep the listing. Julie?
Yes, that's right. And the other thing that helps sellers is to talk to them when you get it pre-inspected and you know what's going on with the house. You're still in control of the contractors you use, the estimates that you get, how much you spend or don't spend on it, versus having to deal with that when you're in contract. And now the buyer feels like they can push you around, and they're going to back out if you don't do A, B, and C. So it actually is a big advantage to the seller, and certainly to the listing agent as far as dealing with stuff.
I just remembered something. I don't remember the name of this company. I bet you will, though. At eXp Realty, Julie and I are with eXp Realty. We have been for the last 6 years. One of the best business decisions we ever made, that's for sure. By the way, if you guys are looking for a broker upgrade, whether you're a new agent or an experienced agent, we strongly encourage you to take a look at eXp Realty. It's going to be, for 99% of you, the best brokerage that you can ever possibly imagine. So we've given you 2 pathways to move forward. You can either click the link below and learn more about our eXp Realty group and why literally thousands of agents are joining with Julie and I every single year with eXp Realty. And the link is down below. Or if you'd like, you can just text me directly. If you've already decided you were going to join eXp Realty and you're looking for a sponsor that's going to be very proactive in your success, eXp Realty, Julie and I are formally applying for the job. And for all the thousands of eXp agents that are listening to us right now, yes, Julie and I are certainly open to co-sponsoring with you as you find agents that also want to join eXp Realty. But what got me on that, Julie, was eXp's got a affiliate, a partner company that if the seller doesn't have the money, and this does happen, to get the repairs done, this company will loan the money to the seller to get the work done, and then the seller pays the company back at closing. I don't know how the math works. I don't remember the name of the company, but if you guys are in eXp Realty, it's one of the benefits. And if you haven't been caught in this situation before, you will be. The more you become successful at listing houses, the more often you're going to come across sellers that are in all kinds of thorny situations. And when that happens, you need to have an idea how to solve the problem. Julie and I actually had, for a while, we were taking so many listings, and the sellers would have those exact situations where we'd say, listen, the house is going to sell a lot faster for a lot more money if you do A, B, and C. And sometimes they wouldn't have the money, sometimes they wouldn't have the time, or they wouldn't have the inclination. And so what we would do is we would put one of our crews out there to fix the house up, and we would invoice the seller. The seller would then pay us back at closing. We didn't margin it. We didn't make any money on it. The contractors didn't work for us. They were just a third party we used. But if the contractor sometimes wouldn't want to wait for closing to get paid, so we'd pay the seller, we'd pay for the work ourselves. We've never once got hurt on that. We never once had any seller not pay us back or give us any grief about that. As a matter of fact, we ended up taking a lot more listings because of that, because they really appreciated us helping them out. Guys, there's going to be all kinds of thorny situations, financial related, legal related. Maybe it's a property that's, just so many examples just rushing into my mind of the times that we did that.
All the things. Yeah. Yeah. But your goal is to mitigate any potential future objections. You don't want somebody to love the inside of the house and they just look at that roof and they're like, oh my gosh, it obviously needs a roof. Let's just keep looking. I don't want to deal with that. The seller might not even get that feedback. They're just sitting on the market while that keeps on going on. So yeah, it's worth knowing about those companies that eXp partners with to allow that, especially on the bigger ticket items like foundation things and roofs and all that kind of stuff. So yes. All right. The next thing is really important. We're going to move away from, the maintenance idea and into a very important thing. And that is to create a really beautiful, stunning home brochure. Stop calling it flyers. Okay. It needs to be a home brochure. And here is some advanced player coaching. Make a beautiful flyer. I'm sorry, I just slipped. A beautiful brochure, no matter what the price range is. Have a company. Now, some of you are really good at graphic art and Canva and design, and that's your jam, and you love to do that. But others of you need to just rely on what your brokerage does, like EXP does that for you. That's a great thing. Why would you spend hours on that if you don't have to? There are companies like the one that EXP uses that, look, that's what they do for a living. So you can rely on that.
Well, so for example, EXP Luxury, which is a big reason like so many luxury agents are joining EXP right now, you have got to see the marketing suite that they give you guys. You can literally have EXP marketing create all of your marketing collateral. Now, I want you to pick, put this thought in your head. You got a listing appointment. You're going out and meeting with the seller. You're going to be able to show the seller the quality of the marketing material that you're going to present, that you're going to be presenting their house as. That matters in any price range with any seller, but you want to have a normal sort of meat and potatoes type marketing plan with your home brochures, and you want to have an elaborate luxury one, and then maybe even a tier above that. And EXP Luxury, for the more expensive stuff, will give all that to you. And also they have a great marketing that's turnkey. You don't have to do anything for just normal home brochures. In smaller brokerages, you're better off if you just essentially find a vendor, a third-party vendor on your own. But with EXP, again, EXP agents, if you're not using EXP marketing, Julie and I coach and train in many different brokerages other than EXP. And EXP marketing has become the benchmark, especially with luxury, has become the benchmark for the industry as far as what marketing and advertising should really look like. And they're always upgrading it, which is kind of frustrating because you got to kind of keep up with it. But at the same time, it's so incredible because they take feedback from agents right away and say, hey, this other company is now doing something a little bit different that maybe we need to consider changing. And EXP doesn't say, well, this is the way we do it. They change it, they upgrade it, they make it different. And you can personalize all this as well. EXP, the cool thing, one of the cool things about EXP is EXP wants you to be the brand. EXP is not a consumer brand. They're not trying to be, Century 21, if you're old enough to know what the hell that was. They're not trying to be Berkshire Hathaway. They're not trying to be Compass. They're not trying to be a consumer-facing brand. They want you to be the consumer-facing brand. Tim and Julie Harris, you're the consumer-facing brand. And EXP is just the company that you're associated with, because that's the reality of how real estate works. Is that the sellers and the buyers are not choosing you because of your brand, of your brokerage. They're choosing you because of you. And so if you remember that, what I just told you, that's going to probably cut through a lot of the malaise and confusion you have about which brokerage you should go with. And if you don't have the mindset that you're the brand, you're not going to be very successful in real estate right now, because unfortunately what's happened. So Julie and I are Generation X, and there's the older folks, the baby boomers. The baby boomers arguably were the last generation that gave a crap about brands, in the sense that they will be brand loyal their entire lives for a particular type of product. They're only going to buy a certain type of toilet paper. They're only going to buy a certain type of shampoo or whatever. Younger folks do not care. Julie and I's generation sort of cares, and people younger than us do not care. That's the reason that you have, these brands that have been around forever, like Nike, that, now they're on their heels as a company. You see all these new companies coming around that no one's ever heard of, and inside 24 or 36 months, they dominate a marketplace. Same thing is happening in real estate with individual agents too. So just remember, you are the brand ultimately. And when it comes to marketing and it comes to creating great high quality brochures and marketing collateral for your sellers, I assure you that EXP is going to blow you away. And please do consider Julie and I as your sponsor at EXP Realty. And again, if you're at EXP Realty and you're looking for a co-sponsor, we are certainly applying for that job as well. The link to learn more about our group is down below, or if you're ready to join, you can just text me directly at 512-758-0206. All right, Julie, we are moving on to point number 7, which is definitely important. And point number 8 is very similar to what we were talking about with regards to point number 5. But as far as point number 7 goes, know the market like the back of your hand. And it's really important that you don't just use the MLS to get to know the individual intricacies of the market. We talked about stink or odors before. So what if, for example, you don't know that one of the houses down the way does have a, sort of this, odd odor about it, but you did see it's a similar house and you're using it as a comp, but the seller knows that the house isn't selling because of the fact that the people used to keep pet ponies in the basement, wherever the hell it was, and you
Nice.
didn't know that, you are not going to get the listing. And the seller's not going to straight up embarrass you and say, why didn't you know this? They're going to find out if you knew, and if you didn't, you're not going to take the listing. So if you're not previewing all the competition prior to going on listing appointments, you are not going to most likely be a very successful listing agent, because the sellers are going to be the lookout as to whether or not you actually did preview. And yes, that does include new construction.
That's right. And it also includes new things that pop up while you are actively listed and not pending. You better know before they do. It's okay to call them and say, hey, I noticed you probably did too. That house right around the corner from you just went up. I went ahead and I previewed that. And I wanted to let you know, here are the notes that I have. It's priced 20,000 more than you, and here's why. Or it's 20,000 less than you, and here's why. And maybe that it creates a price adjustment for you as well. Maybe it doesn't. So you want to always be previewing both before and during that active listing. And Tim mentioned it, especially if you have new construction near you. It's not just to see what the house has to offer for the money, but it's also what are the incentives that that builder is throwing at potential buyers.
That's right. And so remember what you just said. When you've got something for sale, and the seller is going to have previewed the house, maybe through an open house, maybe they were in that house before. Do not ever be in a situation where the seller knows more about the competition than you do. You will get fired. And yes, it is a great idea to have the seller preview the competing houses. If you can have them see houses that recently went pending, that's extra valuable, because they're going to see if they can be somewhat objective why maybe their house is not as competitive, or maybe it offers more than what the house just went in contract for, those types of things. But knowing your market, the very basics of what a seller or a buyer expects you to have as far as basic knowledge is going to be obtained through definitely doing previewing. Great CMAs are part of it. We teach you guys how to do that in Premier Coaching. But yes. All right, Julie, let's move on. And we did talk about point number 8, but it is, I guess it's point number 8 and point number 9 are kind of in the same bucket of things. Don't miss the opportunity to fix the small little stupid things. Like make a magic eraser your friend, Julie.
Oh, you mean the Mr. Clean eraser? Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Clean Magic Eraser is one of the best things that you can do, and saves your sellers, in many cases, from having to paint an entire wall or an entire room. That magic eraser takes off like shoe scuffs and, all kinds of just little things that make you want to paint. It's especially good on like handrails and banisters and steps and things like that. A lot of our coaching clients have put together like a pre-listing prep kit that has Mr. Clean Magic Eraser. It's got maybe the air ionizer as part of that kit. So be ready. And, the point is to make the house show in its best light. And that brings us to, I think that was our other point, was about the backyard. So maybe they're in love with the house, but they go in the backyard, and you were really good about getting those dogs out of the house, but nobody's cleaned up the dog poo for 2 weeks. So you really want to be on top of the front yard and the backyard. That also includes all of you in Vegas and Phoenix and those areas with green pools that nobody's used, for a while. You want to take care of all of those things. Make it so that the buyer's thinking about having a barbecue this summer in the backyard and how they're going to use that. Maybe you add a porch swing, or you add a little bit of staging to that. You've got to look at every area and take off your listing agent hat, put on your buyer hat, and say, if I was seriously looking in this neighborhood, would I take this house seriously? How does this stand up versus the competition? Maybe I just saw something down the street that was amazing, and it's my house. This listing isn't really that competitive if I look at it the way it currently sits. What do I need to do? How do I need to coach the seller to fix those things? And again, especially if you have new construction nearby, because that's going to smell good. It's going to be staged, and then they throw incentives on top. So you've got to know about all that stuff.
We do have all of this as something you're giving your sellers after you take the listing, called the Complete Home Selling Guide. And we are in the process of updating it, existing Premier Coaching clients. But the Complete Home Selling Guide is, in essence, what they should be doing, their checklist of things they should be doing, from choosing movers to a lot of the things we talked about today. But it's
even how to prepare for a showing last minute. What do? You don't turn down the showing. You do this list of 10 things, and you can do it in 20 minutes and still okay that showing.
That's right. And so the last point, point number 10, is actually very interesting because in this day and age of AI, every single one of you should be able to nail the property description. Julie?
Yes. So please don't use the overused terms open and airy or neutral decor. That just doesn't say anything, does it? It's very vanilla. Now you've got ChatGPT. Now you've got Grok. You've got writing assistants. You've got editing assistants. I used to clip out some descriptions from like British Homes magazines because they used more flowery language and it made anything sound interesting. But you can also borrow language from luxury listings and maybe even from a different market that makes your stuff sound even better. But you can certainly use, I just reviewed one of my clients in Phoenix just sent me her thing and I said, gosh, that's a really great description. She goes, thank goodness for AI. And it came out fantastic. So
Well,
use the tools you've got.
let's work on this idea because this is a very interesting little angle for you. So what is branding? Branding is something, the qualities that you want to have associated with your name, who you are, right? So branding of your descriptions, let's think about that. What if you were to start, as Julie just said, writing every one of your descriptions in somewhat of a whimsical way to try to make people laugh, to make them fun to read? What if you were all of a sudden having all your brochures, something that had a little bit extra, little something in it that made them, people
Made
didn't
them
want to put
look,
it
made
down.
them read to the end.
Right, exactly. And you can have AI write these for you. Matter of fact, like it's very simple. Just go to ChatGPT or Grok. Grok is a little bit more sarcastic, but you can work on that. And if you use it, let's just stick with ChatGPT. If you use it on the regular, it's going to remember the previous writing assignments it's done for you. And you can have it and you will work together to develop a writing style. It will reference past prompts that you had given it to know what you like and you dislike. So, when Julie and I, if AI was around when we were selling real estate in New Albany, Ohio, that was an area that all the architecture was based on Georgian mansions, basically. Then and different, all the little, if you guys know anything about Georgian mansions, there's not just one style. There's not one style of brick. There's
Different
not
architecture and
it's
stuff like that.
ridiculous, all the details, right? Federal versus just all these different things. Well, that was something that Julie and I she just mentioned. We got Homes magazines and she would snip out little ideas, little phrasings that she saw, and she'd just drop those into our home brochures. And the sellers loved it. And we were able to use that as a competitive advantage when going on listing appointments, where we'd show the sellers our home brochures with Julie's elaborate, descriptions. And the sellers would always read the damn things and they'd always appreciate it. Essentially the combination of all the tiny little things are what makes you successful when you become a listing agent, especially when you want to be listing lots of houses for folks other than your friends and family, right? Now, how do you go about doing it? Get to know the community, get to know the different architectural styles. You can actually send AI to go out and do all this investigative stuff for you. And have AI go and research the history of the community. Have it know when the community was built. Have it know why the streets are named what it's, do all this research and include it in your home brochure and make it so that when someone's reading it, it's compelling. It feels like a short story. You could even play with it even more. I know a coaching client, who's having AI write songs about their listings. So they'll use, and there's lots of AI that will do that. You can have it literally sing in a male or female voice, country, western, or rock and roll, or whatever you want it to be, and make a custom song for each of your listings. Now, it's a gimmick, but that's kind of hilarious if you think about it, and some sellers will love it. You can have the AI write a poem about the house, like ask ChatGPT to write a poem about 123 Elm Street and why the sellers are going to love the house because it, has this westward view over the mountain range, or just those types of things. And
that could be your signature thing, right? I think that's
what I'm trying
you're
to
saying,
say.
is make that your thing for your home brochures, for your MLS descriptions. One thing that if we were selling more than coaching right now, what I would do, I would totally use that on expireds that had really lame descriptions.
Which all
I
of them
would
do.
say, which is all of them. You would say
Yes.
before and after. Perhaps you just need a fresh approach, and you could use your signature descriptions. So you can have a lot more fun with this than when we were doing it. I think it could be really hilarious and a signature piece.
But this all goes back to why it is one agent had the je ne sais quoi or the secret sauce and other agents don't. It's all these little tiny things that we tell you about.
But it's the combination of them. It's not just embracing one.
It's not just.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all these things in combination. And we teach you guys that in Premier Coaching. And I think the reason I know the reason this podcast is so compelling for so many of you. Thousands of you listen. It's always one of the top downloaded podcasts in the world in our section on iTunes. It's because you can tell we've been there and done that personally, but what you can really tell is we've helped thousands and thousands of other agents to be there and done that, do that themselves. And that's really the difference between what Julie and I offer and what everyone else offers. So if there is a difference that you feel intuitively when you listen to this podcast and you're learning things from this podcast, you will not believe the information that we give you in Premier Coaching. It is without a doubt, Julie and I's, I would say, our, the zenith of all of our work that we've made. It is a complete system. It's 13 levels. One level builds upon the next that helps you to build a real estate business, not just help you sell a house or help you generate a lead. Lead generation is in there, marketing brain is in there, business systems organization are in there. It's all there. So if you guys can go to premiercoaching.com anytime and join Premier Coaching. And there's now a way that you can actually join Premier Coaching with Premier Coaching VIP, and you can then get full access to Ethical Real Estate Professional, which is our proprietary real estate designation. If you guys don't know about that, check it out. Just go to ethicalrealestateprofessional.com. We are leaving it all on the fields for you, and we're trying to motivate you to do the same for yourself and for your real estate market. Guys, we are at the very beginning stages of what, without a doubt, is going to be a 25-year real estate boom. Make sure you're thinking like that and you're taking actions to support those thoughts. And then what you're going to find is your business and your life will get continuously better. You have not even come close to the peak version of you, provided that you keep on progressing. Progress with your thoughts, but most importantly, progress with your efforts. And on behalf of Julie, myself, and all of our faculty and staff, thank you for listening today. And remember, we have thousands of past podcasts you guys can tap into at any time. In the meantime, have a fantastic day. We'll talk with you on the show tomorrow.